Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Sin series as we continue in our journey to Jerusalem. The reading that we're going to look at today is Luke 14, verses 25 to 30, and we're going to particularly focus on that key verse, verse 27. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. As we look at these final weeks of the journey to Jerusalem, all the way through it, Jesus has been teaching. He's been warning his disciples, and he's been warning them that to follow him was not an easy option. It's not a shortcut. It's not a shortcut to glory and power. It's a hard way. It's a difficult way. And the larger the crowds who came to hear him, the more determined he seemed to show that his path was a path of suffering. It's a path through opposition and misunderstanding, not around it. The 12 had had this message often, but right up to the moment of his betrayal and arrest, crucifixion, they hadn't really seemed to understand it. They didn't really feel that it would be like that. Where the wider circle of disciples were concerned, including the faithful women who followed him, there seemed a reluctance to believe that God's Messiah, God's chosen one, could be rejected and killed by God's own people. Luke tells us in verse 25 that large crowds were travelling with him. And the very sight of them seems to have stirred something up in Jesus, seems to have made him want to spell out in no uncertain terms the conditions of discipleship, in the same way that he'd done with the disciples earlier in the Gospels. If they were to follow him, without doubt, unreservedly, he's not interested at all in half-hearted or nominal followers. They need to understand that the commitment would cause issues. The commitment to him would cause issues, problems, separations, even within their families. They might have to face choices with their nearest and dearest on the one hand, the demands of the gospel on the other. Now, Jesus uses an interesting word here, hate. And we recoil from that a little bit. We perhaps need to understand that he's using hyperbole here, an obvious exaggeration. We know that Jesus loved and cared for his own mother. We know that Jesus would have fully endorsed the commandment to honour a father and mother in Exodus 20. The point here is not a question of family loyalties, but to establish spiritual priorities. The priority of following Jesus. And that priority was to be above all else. So in this instant, Jesus clearly wanted to spell out as powerfully as he could that to follow him is not a light thing. It's not a light commitment. It means dedication of body, mind, and spirit to the message and mission of the kingdom. It might very well cost them their lives to follow him. It was about carrying a cross, an object of public ridicule and shame, an object of execution, of death. In this instance, death to self. After all, he told them, it's only wise to make sure before embarking on an important enterprise, like building a tower or waging a war, that you carry it through to its completion. Jesus didn't want fair weather followers. At the moment of decision by the closest of his disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane is a reminder that even the truest and best ones were to find it desperately hard at times. If we look at the whole Christian church over history, there's been long periods when the church expected to be honoured, when the church expected to be respected by everyone. And the world would never have been turned upside down by a church like that. So the big question, the question that is still asked of us by Jesus, is are we willing to pay the cost of following him?